Will C++ ever be complete? Will the standard and the language be done forever, or is there always something to think about besides the thinking?
It's a living language. Will English ever be finished? Will there ever be a final version of English? So I think the answer is, as long as it is in use and being used in new and interesting ways, or have to meet new challenges, as long as the world is changing, the language will have to change and the library will have to change. My guess is that the core facilities will become more and more stable and the libraries will become more and more plentiful. But sort of perfect lack of change is no. I mean, in the Middle Ages, you could learn your father's profession and teach it to your son, and that was all there was, because, well, that was all there was. These days, we're making progress. And with progress comes a certain amount of instability, having to learn new things and have to change. And then you get the problems with also maintaining stability too.
I know, we've had these discussions 2 other times during these Code Rage online virtual conferences. And one of the conversations we had, I forget if it was in 2012 or 2014 or somewhere along the way, was about user interface, graphics, those areas that have to do with device, these devices that we have and so on.
Yes, that's your specialty. It's not mine. I know very little about real GUI and real graphics. I tend to focus on lower level things, not because the lower level things are more important in a fundamental way, but because that's what I know about. And I wish we had more support. But each time we try, something happens. Like there's a discussion currently going on about it. If we are going to have simple graphics in GUI, does it have to be good enough for the experts in Hollywood that makes movies? If the answer is yes, it is not good enough for the novices. But if it's good enough for the novices, it's not good enough for the real experts. Should we split the graphics GUI world into 2? I wouldn't mind too much, because currently we are split into about 25. But I don't see massive progress in that. Maybe some little progress, and we're certainly thinking about it, but the track record is not great.
The other discussion,
fortunately, there's other things than the standard.
And another thing we had discussed in the past was using runtime libraries, using the libraries to test out ideas as well before they either get swept into the standard, whether it was a standard library, or into the language, the sort of boost libraries and so on. I was wondering if there was anything that is going on in those worlds that might creep into the language and the standard library in the future.
There's certainly a lot of experiments going on in the libraries, Boost and elsewhere. The problem is that it's hard to get across the library language barrier. People tend to build libraries that are sort of more elaborate and take into account things that they can't do well in the language, and then they do it in the library, and then they want to do it in the language in the way they did it in the library. So it's not actually that easy to move across. We lately saw the addition of any and variant and optional into C++ 14, or was it 17? I can't remember these things anymore. But we got them. But they look like libraries. Whereas I have this sneaky suspicion that if they had been designed for language, they would have been better and more consistent. Same kind of thing with pair and tuple. That is, it is a really useful facility to experiment with libraries, and we get a lot of experience, but it's hard to move it into the language. I think we did it right with lambdas, where we used lambda libraries for experimentation, and they never were fast enough or elegant enough. They could do amazing things, but we could do better in the language than we did. And I think we have to think a little bit harder when we move things from a library into the language.